trying to think of a name for this video. Clash of the reasonably priced Chinese fountain pens from pandapenclub.com. Morning pen friends, it's Andy Dorm from pandapenclub.com on the Panda Pen Club YouTube channel, and I'm broadcasting you this message from an abysmally dreary afternoon. Absolutely ludicrous it looks outside, and chilly as ever, chilled to the bone as ever, barely hanging on to my little pens. But here I am, soldiering on to bring you an extraordinary event in televised fountain pen gladiatorial comparison. The Jinhao x450, and what I suppose numerically must be its older, wiser brother, the Jinhao 750. Here we have two pens that, on first glance, from the distance I'm keeping you at over there at the moment, maybe they look really similar. From where I am, God, if you're a bit blurry-eyed, they look quite similar too. First of all, the Jinhao 450. It is 140.6 millimeters in length, capped or thereabouts. It is 123.5 millimeters uncapped. The 750 is ever so slightly, incrementally larger. I told you it was cold. I'm sort of maneuvering this pen around with various sort of interconnected ice cubes, which I'm calling my hands today. The Jinhao x450, 140 millimeters capped length. The Jinhao 750, 141.42 millimeters long, incrementally longer capped length, and correspondently uncapped, incrementally longer as well, 125 millimeters uncapped to the 450's 123.5 millimeters. The weight, again, kind of curiously, the 450 weighs, and this is converterless weight because there was ink in both converters and it would all get too complicated. So converterless weight, 40 grams, the 450, 36 grams, the 750. Doesn't sound like a lot. Certainly not a lot when you are making bread pudding or scones. But with these two pens in the hand, it certainly feels, sorry, let me give you a visual impression. It feels substantial. You notice it, which if you're the kind of person that likes a little extra heft to your pen, you appreciate it too. Likewise, if you like to keep nimble, keep your hands dancing around across the page like crazy spiders, then maybe you'd appreciate a little less weight. So, first impressions. Let's start first with the 450 shape. I would call the shape like a torpedo, almost your archetypal torpedo, or perhaps even a really sleek submarine. The 750, I would call this more of a kind of subway carriage, like sort of an underground railway train, you know, like sort of a little blunter is what I'm saying. You've got this aquiline nose and counter nose, aka finial, on the 450, which rounds up with a greater degree of convexity, whereas the 750, a little blunter, a little stubbier, a little more abrupt, finishes quicker. Rounder, flatter. In terms of the clips, we immediately tap into one of my deepest prejudices when it comes to fountain pens. when we start looking at these clips and examining them closely, particularly with the 450. It's got this sort of this tinniness to it. You can see, if you look at the side, you can see the moulding underneath and the way it's been moulded inwards. I'm not sure how on earth the laws of physics will permit me to show you that. Maybe you can see that. So it does feel a little, or rather it looks a little on the cheapy side, this one. It has 3 little nodules, 1, 2, 3, towards the top, providing you with much needed grip. And then it finishes in this lovely little teardrop blob at the end with a sort of ski jump up to it, which is nice. So you have this kind of, I suppose it actually looks rather like a teaspoon from here. There's sort of teaspoonish, tinny looking gold clip. On the 750, we are absent our 3 nodules. We have an entirely smooth, not entirely smooth, sorry, there is a little indented sort of triangular decorative stuff going on towards the top, but other than that we have uninterrupted elegance. Or do we? I mentioned the look of the 450's gold clip and the 750's silver clip, but looks aren't everything. It's also how you feel, guys, and these feel very different to me. The 750, I would say, looks a little less tinny, a little less cheap. I hate using that word cheap. It sounds so mean. I don't mean it meanly, I just mean it. This one looks a bit cheap to me. But look, or rather imagine, look at that. Wobbly clips. If there's one thing I dislike more than being able to see the underneath of the clip like I can on the 450, it's when I get a pen, I enjoy a pen, and then the clip starts wobbling and I have to start thinking about how to fix it. And obviously it can be fixed, but that hasn't happened with the 450. The 450 we have firmly in place. Really, no, I'm not kidding or anything. This is a well fastened clip. God, I'm going to start yanking it around so much I'm going to screw it up. No, this clip feels secure. Some of you may feel I'm laying a little too much emphasis on this. If that's the case, you're in luck, because I've finished talking about the clips for now. This next part of the video, I want to talk about the appearance, the lacquer work on either pen. Obviously, these pens come in a variety of colours. The 750 here has a sort of, I don't know, sort of like, kind of like, I don't know, the sky in your nightmares, you know? It's like, what is it like? It's like Ursula the Octopus's toilet bowl, something like that. It looks insane, but very pretty as well. However, there's also something that bothers me ever so slightly, is you can see the join in the sheet of whatever has been applied to the body of this pen. So you can see the entirely straight join if you examine closely. Not the case with the 450. No join. Here we have kind of, I don't know, I would call this colour scheme maybe 80s stockbroker bathroom or something like that. I don't know. It's quite nice actually. So maybe I won't call it that. I'd call it distressed slate or something. I don't know. It's like black but with these lovely lines through it, which looks rather marvellous. No join. I've already mentioned the weight. We have our heavier 450, our slightly lighter 750. I think probably it's best I walk you through the materials. Lacquerwork, metal body, plastic section, plastic molded section on the 450 with other metal trimmings, 6mm feed on a two-tone nib. More on the section and more on the nib coming up. Identical setup with this one. Lacquer on metal, metal section, plastic section screwing in to the body. But on the 750 we have metal threads. On the 450 you'll notice we have a plastic threads on our section. So that's one key distinction. And it certainly worries me slightly, metal screwing into plastic in that way. Could catch. Hasn't done yet, but could do. And just to finish off walking through the bodies of the pens, we have our, well, it calls itself GP gold plated nib on the 750, but it seems to be sort of chrome to me. More on that later. Final point on the external appearance of these pens. They both make quite a point of their cap bands. Both of them make quite a, well, they're going for something, both of them, because there's definitely a lot of stuff going on these. On the Jinhao 450, we have the words Jinhao, and x450. We have the use of italics and kind of scripted, prettified fonts, which looks actually rather nice. And that's engraved into the gold. So it's quite a subtle impression on the cap band there. Jinhao x450, italicized and pseudo handwritten scripted fonts. And here we have the 750, and we have the words, let me just double check. Yeah, we have the words Jinhao, we have the word, or rather the designation x750, and then we also have this kind of Wu-Tang Clan hoodie kind of burbling scrawl. I apologize if it's actually a language. I don't know what it is. It must mean something. You don't just randomly scrawl all over something that's so critically central to the branding of your carefully designed fountain pen. I'd love to know what that means. So, we've covered the threads, but let's have a look again at the sections in a little more detail. This is where people really emphasize the differences between these pens. Let me show you them side by side to begin with. So you can see it's almost like the 450 is the kiddie with the stabilizers on his bike, and the 750 is the bold, confident teenager who can do it all on its own. And thank you very much, its own. Do it all on his or her or whatever's own, without any assistance from hand grips. So people feel funny about this. Some people do not like having their grip imposed on them, I suppose. You could compare the contouring on the section of the 450 to the similar setup on the Lamy Safari, which also has a molded section. Much more explicitly a starter pen, the Lamy. So maybe that makes a bit more sense with this one. Maybe we can call our 450 as I implied earlier, a starter pen. It doesn't necessarily need to dictate how you hold the pen, but it certainly is a strong suggestion. Conversely, with the 750, oh sorry, I've got that completely the wrong way around. Strong suggestion of how you should hold the pen from the 450. Smooth grip, laissez-faire, anything goes grip on the 750. I've already mentioned the threads. I've already mixed the pens up, tried to put lids on the wrong pen, and I'm going to fall off my chair next. But let's, like I said, soldier on. Uncapping of these pens is another interesting distinction. I mentioned earlier that the clip on the 450 is much firmer. Now, when it comes to the cap, I would say it's also pretty firmly made. There's no accidental unscrewing on either pen. They're both friction fit. And they both fit very securely. I guess if I was forced to make a choice about which is more firmly in place, I'd say the 750 by a hair's breadth, but not much. While we're on the caps, we should probably talk about the posting situation. You can post, but it's tricky. You get a funny popping sound whenever you pull it off after you've attempted to post it. You see how loose that is? Let me try and push as hard as I can. No, nothing. Comes off easily. So you can obviously, because you're writing, hopefully in a fairly upright position, you could balance, but it's absolutely unnecessary in terms of comfortably holding the pen, given its length and given the nice way that it's balanced. I would make identical observations about the 450. Not intended to be posted, could be in some sort of really particular emergency, but not necessary because of the length and the decent balance you have with this pen, the decent weight. Next thing I want to come on to, moving down the pen, the nibs. Let's start with the 450. The 450 has a two-tone nib, which has the name of the manufacturer, Jinhao. It has some scroll work and a picture of what at this moment is looking to me a bit like a horse and cart. It also has 18K GP stamped on it. GP obviously stands for gold plated. There's quite a debate going on in various online threads about gold plating, and a lot of people ask the question, what is gold plating for? Since the logic of having a gold nib is it's a softer material, but so how would gold plating on top of steel help? There is some logic to the idea that gold plating could help prevent corrosion. A sacrificial metal. Whenever I'm looking into making a video for pandapenclub.com, I come across a new cool phrase in a thread somewhere. Sacrificial metal. I mean, that's not just a cool phrase. That is, I think, a technical term for the thin layer of metal that, let me check my notes on this, thin layer of metal with a lower electrode potential than the metal it's coating. So you might suggest that the gold is acting as a sacrificial metal, or rather a protective layer for the stainless steel beneath. However, you're dealing with stainless steel, which does corrode eventually, but so very eventually that it's kind of academic. I think it's probably likely to have been very thinly gold plated. Flash plating is the term, I think. Yeah. And according to my notes, if you break a layer of flash plated gold, which is very easy to do when you're tuning a nib or something, immediately all those anti-corrosion benefits expire because the air can get in. And with a two-tone nib, who knows? It would seem that there's a very easy set of ways that anything that was going to corrode the materials that the nib is made from could get in. So I don't really buy the idea that gold plating is there to protect against corrosion. John Morgan of UC Berkeley, who is an economist, writes an interesting article in which he has this premise that the writing experience is almost entirely predicated on the quality of the tipping and the workmanship of the tipping material, the iridium on the tip of the pen. He seems to predicate everything he says about the writing experience of the pen and how good it's likely to be on the assumption that it's all about the tipping material. Well, which I don't think is entirely true. I think there are lots of other aspects to the sensations and the way that your hand, the page, and the nib work together, which can be affected by the materials the nib is constructed from. However, he does point out one thing, which an economist would point this kind of thing out, I guess, is that the gold is there as a signal that quality and care has gone in to the pen. I don't think anyone these days is overwhelmingly impressed by gold plating, and you can just make a nib gold in color, so it's no passerby is going to come and scrutinize. So it's not a kind of cachet thing necessarily. I think a signal to the user that you're dealing with a pen that the manufacturer cares about, that is to some extent an aspect of their flagship line, something like that. A signal, as John Morgan of UC Berkeley suggests. I think that's good. A signal of quality and a signal of intent, rather than anything practical or maybe even anything aspirational. Solid gold nibs and versus stainless steel nibs are an entirely different thing, and I'm not making any assertions about that right now. The 750 nib has entirely the same stuff on it, printed on it. Little kind of horse and cart chariot thing, which is probably going to turn out to be something entirely different when I check more carefully. I did check, and now I can't remember. Anyway, and then the words Jinhao, and again, kind of curiously, given the colour of this nib, 18K GP, 18K gold plating, and yet it's, is it white gold? What is white gold? White gold is a mixture of gold and a nickel. But I don't know. It's either white gold, if we're kind of believing that claim, or it's chrome or something. But yeah, the nib on the 750 is entirely silver in colour. They both have the same size feed, 6mm. I mentioned that earlier. And a lot of people have a lot of fun exchanging these nibs for Goulet number 6 nibs of various different size and specification. The nibs that the pens come with write really nicely, really smoothly, good ink flow, limited skipping that I've encountered, very enjoyable to write with, both these pens. I think it's hard to make great distinctions in terms of the writing experience with either. They both work to the same standard, really. So when you're looking to decide, should I buy a 450 or a 750? Well, first of all, it depends on your budget. And if you're accustomed to buying more expensive fountain pens, then you might want to consider getting both and trying them out. But not everybody operates like that. And if you want to sort of decide the difference, I guess it comes down to your personal taste. Does the clip issue I mentioned bother you on the 450 in the same visceral way that it affects me? How do you feel about the branding? Does this feel, to me, it looks a little bit grumpy teenager or something? But again, that's probably entirely implanted by my experiences growing up as a grumpy teenager and wearing a hoodie and having Wu-Tang Clan written on the hoodie and not even knowing who they are. Or does the fancy writing on this one put you off? There is very little difference in terms of the appearance, aside from the clip, the colours you choose. And I think the main difference that you want to consider, well, the main two differences are how they feel in the hand and whether they will help your writing. Because that is, after all, the purpose of the object. Personally, I think the grip is absolutely fine, the moulded grip on the 450. I have no particular problems with the section on the 750 either. However, I really like the weight, the extra weight that the 450 gives you. And for some reason, to me, and again, this may just be my own prejudices, but I feel almost like I have a more reliable, tighter object here in the 450 than I do in the 750. So even with the dodgy clip, my recommendation is the Jinhao 450 rather than the Jinhao 750. But that's at a push. They're both excellent and enjoyable pens to use, and I recommend them to you. And don't forget, like I just did, don't forget to like using the controls below, to comment using nicely, comment really nicely, using the other controls below, and subscribe, hit subscribe to Panda Pen Club on YouTube. The moment has finally arrived. It's time for the writing sample. Let's start with the Jinhao 450. And this is loaded up with, yes, it's Mnemosine ink. Mnemosine Prussian blue. And I think they've got the name spot on. I don't know why. I barely know anything about Prussia, but this blue, the way, particularly when the ink dries, for some reason makes me think of Prussia. I imagine maybe somebody at Mnemosine had the same experience. It's a lovely ink. And the Jinhao 450 lays it down very nicely. You can see my fingers pushing and shoving and objecting slightly to the grip. But you'll also notice, I don't know, you can't see it right now, but I notice when I'm writing with this pen that it does seem to have very specific objections if you do let it creep out of the way it's asking you to hold it. And which makes me wonder if that's why the grip was introduced. On the other hand, I would imagine this was introduced for a generation of people who wanted a substantial, impressive-looking fountain pen, which this is, but maybe weren't that familiar with them. So we needed a little bit of tutoring, and I must say, I really don't mind. I really do like the writing experience with this pen. Lovely Panda seeks Jinxed Zebra for quick game of whist. There's a little bit of dappling there. This is due to some moisturizer that has smeared off my hand and onto the page, so I apologise for that. It has nothing to do with our Jinhao. I would say the writing experience with the Jinhao is soft and almost silky. It's very, very smooth. With maybe just a little catch. It has a catch more than I would say it has feedback. There is something that's not quite ideal about it. You can get a bit of line variation there. As ever, I think it's more as a sort of a give that facilitates relaxed writing rather than something you should be trying to do. Calligraphy with. So this is a lovely pen, really great. I've recently acquired a version of it in red, which I've got loaded with oxblood. Yeah, diamine oxblood. This is also the Jinhao 450. Another thing that's impressed me about these, you can see that little catch when my grip falters and slides sideways with my over-moisturized hands that I mentioned earlier. If your grip changes slightly unexpectedly, you do get a little bit of, you need to heave it back into the sweet spot. But this is I've taken to writing with this red one in particular constantly. And as you can see, the diamine oxblood agrees with it very well and agrees with me. Lovely Panda seeks Jinxed Zebra for quick game of whist. Would you answer that personal ad? I'd give it some thought. I've seen less tempting personal ads. So we're on to the Jinhao 750. I've already banged on about my feelings on the colour scheme at length in various places. As you can see, same nib size. But do they work the same? Obviously the smoother section gives you this, well, it's treating you a little bit more like an adult, some people would say. So this is a Jinhao 750, Jinhao x750. I wonder what that X stands for. Do you think it's for multiplied? Jinhao times a million kind of thing. Well, maybe. a very bombastic way of presenting yourself to anybody as a product. This is everything you've ever imagined times infinity. It costs $3. And this also contains, this is also, I keep wanting to say diamine Prussian blue ink. And I'm writing again on Muji paper because I think it's gorgeous. Lovely. Panda. 6. Jinxed. Zebra. 4. Quick. Game of whist. Now, I don't feel this pen has any of that little possible catching, skipping away from the sweet spot issue that the Jinhao 450 did, which sort of befits its which is lucky really, because it doesn't have the guardrails, the Zimmer frame, not the Zimmer frame, the opposite, the stabilizer wheels offered by the section, by the grip on the section of the x450. I would say, so maybe it's something to do with the feed in the 450, or maybe it's completely in my imagination, but I have noticed it now on several pens. May, however, just be my imagination. I would say the writing experience is fairly indistinguishable. This is smooth. It is pleasingly wet. I would say, I don't know if you can hear that feed. There's a good feedback with this pen actually. It's a sort of very little resistance on the page, but there's a nice pencil-y sound, nice, very soft pencil sound, which I find kind of encouraging. And as with the 450, line variation is possible, but that's more for relaxed writing rather than calligraphy. They're both very nice writers. Although I have a bit of an issue with this colour scheme, which I promise has not affected my my highly objective and reasoned opinions about the 750 in general. Here's another 750 in a more appealing colour scheme. And I would say this is like the 450, a very good writer. There's very little to separate the writing experience, apart from the things we've already highlighted in our review, namely, well, the section and the visuals of these pens. They're an absolute bargain, and they're a joy to use. I really am impressed with these pens.